COVID-19 pandemic has forced businesses to sit back and reevaluate business strategies, adapt to survive and pivot to thrive. That has become the overarching mantra for entrepreneurs as they work to keep their businesses afloat in this very uncertain economic environment. And one company that has had to completely re-strategize its business is CureFit. It has resorted to shutting down some of its fitness centers and gyms at the start of the lockdown, which led to its operations of its crown jewel Cult coming to a grinding halt. At that time, Cult was bringing in 60% of the group's revenues and had emerged as the coolest player in India's crowded fitness market. But that was the story 3 months ago. Today, Cult has turned into a flourishing online fitness platform, clocking 500,000 sessions every day, has signed up 1.5 million new users with 50,000 paid subscribers. Of course, the pivot has come after a fair amount of pain. Expansion to new markets has been halted. Employees were laid off along with deep cuts in revenue and growth. Outside of Cult, the other business verticals are reporting interesting trends, at least for the last quarter. Food delivery is leading growth for EatFit. The new telemedicine guidelines have brought in a surge in volumes for CareFit, and the toll on mental health during the lockdown has meant more sessions for MindFit. Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shireen Bhan. Well, joining me now to talk about the mega COVID pivot and the future of the business are Mukesh Bansal, co-founder and CEO at CureFit, and Ankit Nagori, the co-founder at CureFit. Mukesh and Ankit, many thanks for joining us. Mukesh, let me start by asking you, we are in the midst of unlocking, and while many businesses have been allowed to restart, yours isn't one of them. Gyms have not been allowed to reopen at this point in time. What is the impact so far? How have you managed to stay afloat?
Right. Hi, Shireen. So, yes, you're right. I think it will probably take few more weeks and maybe even few more months before gyms are allowed to resume because of the natural crowding that happens in gym space. And we'll have to just wait it out. Our strategy for gym business has been that let's reduce our cost, let's run lean operations. We have highly differentiated product with 250 centers, and we think we'll come back very strong on the offline side. But simultaneously, we have worked very hard on our digital offering, and that has seen massive scale. So there is, big silver lining for us in this crisis. Being able to build a large digital business in a matter of months, something which would not have happened otherwise. So yeah, it's a mixed bag for us. We are taking, making the most of the new opportunities and being prepared to ride out the storm, however long it lasts.
Well, as they say, the agile survive, and in your case, that's certainly what you're trying to do. Ankit, let me ask you about that silver lining and what you've been able to capitalize on. As Mukesh was pointing out, you've made the digital pivot. The numbers are looking good. And now you are also starting to monetize that service. So about 50,000 paid subscribers. What's the reception? What's the feedback been from customers?
Shireen, like Mukesh mentioned, when the whole pandemic forced us to shut down our centers, we started launching our digital products. So there are two categories of digital products. One is the live streaming business, where consumers can log into these classes and work along. And the other one is a one-on-one with a specialist. So in the second category, we have telemedicine, mental wellness, one-on-one PT classes, and nutritionists. That is a business which was almost zero before we even started this business in about March, April. Now we see on some days thousands of people coming onto these platforms, onto these services, and it is scaled really, really well. This is for people who are looking for specialized goals and certain need types, etc. And that could be because of certain health requirement or some precondition, etc. But the larger business, which is now scaling up really fast, is the virtual live business. I think a lot of people have already tried it. We offer all our formats which we're offering in the Cult offline center online. So trainers run these classes, etc. The reception has been very, very good, and this is a product which has helped us scale to 1 million plus customers trying our products, while offline had its own limitation in number of people who could sell a product. Now, and in the end of May, we started monetizing the product for a premium offering. And in the month one, we've been able to clock close to 10 crores in overall digital revenue ever since we started monetizing it, and 50,000 paid subscribers. So it's a very welcome number. I think 50,000 is something which is very, very promising, and we feel that in a few months we'll be able to take it to 1 million subscribers. And probably Mukesh and I can also talk about our international plans later in the show.
Yes, I would like to talk about your international plans, but let me pick up on that point that you made, Ankit, and get Mukesh to answer that. 10 crore rupees in digital revenue, and I would imagine, Mukesh, that the margins are going to be significantly higher because, when you move online, the kind of overhead expenses that you would have had to deal with on the offline side of the business are not costs that you will have to carry with you. So is this perhaps going to be a much more profitable play, the digital play for you?
Absolutely, Shireen. There is no question about it. Digital has very low cost structure, and whether a particular live class is done by 1,000 customers or 100,000 customers is cost the same. So the contribution margin keeps increasing as you increase the number of subscribers, and that's why that's what makes the digital business attractive from business model point of view as well as scalability point of view. So yes, we as Ankit mentioned, the coming months and years we look to scale digital. Other big advantage of digital is there's no geographic boundary. Our current business was limited to top 10 cities in the country, but now we can go after people in 1,000 cities. People we're already seeing hundreds of cities where we have subscribers, and we can easily transcend the national boundaries as well, which is why we are starting to now promote our app beyond India as well. We launched in the US just last month with nearly 5,000 classes happening every day coming from US, and the early signs we'll have to work and tweak the product for international market. But that's a freedom and a new opportunity, which a digital business enables, and we, as a company, are now quite bullish and excited about the possibilities that come from being almost a digital first company.
That's interesting what you point out. And I remember at the start of the COVID crisis, I had many conversations with consulting companies like McKinsey and BCG and others. And I think and EY, and the one thing that stuck was that companies that make the pivot and not just augment existing revenues, but look for new revenue lines will be the companies that will be able to steer their way through this crisis. And you just heard from Mukesh and Ankit on how they're being able to do that, not just augment current revenues, but open up new revenue streams. But Ankit, let's pick up on that international expansion plan that Mukesh was talking about. You've started in the US. What's the aspiration? What do you have lined up over the next few weeks?
So, Shireen, if you look at all the international apps which offer fitness, mental wellness, and other services, surprisingly enough, we've not found a single app which can package all the offerings that we have. And the offerings which just took off in India in the last quarter, we feel that it's a very international product in nature. We feel that a lot of customers across the world will love the product. And while we had not launched the US app, in the beginning of the lockdown, we saw a lot of people from US and other geographies logging into the app. Perhaps a lot of them were NRIs, but we also started seeing a pretty decent growth amongst other segments as well. So in June beginning, we decided to launch a US version, which will have slightly more customized content for the North America market. The class timings will be more suitable to the time zone there. And also we'll launch a bunch of other services. Right now, we're only offering the live classes, meditation and DIY recipes. But I think we have the personal training, nutrition consulting, and a second opinion on doctor consultation in the pipeline. So we believe that we have a very big opportunity at hand on creating a first multi-category health app in the US. Of course, it will be a pretty uphill climb, but I see very good, decent traction. We've had a few thousand people try the product. The ratings are very good. The App Store and Play Store ratings are close to 5 on 5. So we believe that it's a product which can scale internationally. Of course, it's very early days, but we have a lot of focus there. And given that it's a digital nature, the whole business, we believe that it can be not only a North America market, but in future, many more developed countries can try, customers from developed countries can try our product.
Okay, that's interesting, and that's as part of the future growth strategy. But Mukesh, let me ask you now, there is uncertainty on when you will be allowed to reopen your offline stores. And even if you are allowed to reopen your offline stores, will there be demand? Because there is a very deep-rooted fear psychosis, which may prevent people from actually getting back into gyms. I mean, they're struggling to get back into restaurants. That's what restaurateurs tell us. So given that environment, do you believe that you may need to take tougher decisions on the offline side of the business?
Shireen, you are right. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and we do all kinds of scenario planning and modeling and obviously talk to experts and government, etc., trying to gauge, what is likely scenario over next 3, 6, 12 months. See, one, hard fact is, at some point the crisis will be over.
Huh.
It's difficult to say whether that is 6 months or 12 months. So, first step that, we are doing is we are just prepared to write this out, however long it takes. We even thought of scenarios that if it take 18 months, so be it, because eventually life will come back to normal. People will want
So
to go
is that
out.
the worst case scenario? Is 18 months the worst case scenario that
That
you're
is,
working
if
with?
I'm in a, that is in one of my, if I'm in absolute paranoid mode, but I would say most likely 6 to 9 months, I think is what we are planning for. 6 to 9 months from now, we expect to be nearly similar level of business as before the crisis. I think gyms will start opening up from August onwards, and you are right. We'll have to take a lot of safety precautions, social distancing, lot of sanitization, perhaps reduced minutes per class, and so on. And some people will be apprehensive.
Well,
Everyone will
that's
not.
my question. That's my question, Mukesh. Given everything that you've just spoken of, I mean, forget the fact that, sanitization and all of that will come with a cost. But if the footfalls are not commensurate with the costs of keeping that offline operation running, will you be forced to actually review staying in the offline business altogether?
See, some of the data we are looking from other markets, Shireen, is, most of the places like Singapore, China, Australia, even in Europe, a lot of gyms are already back to 70, 80% levels.
Okay.
So as long as we cross 50, 60% threshold, half the people start coming back in, we will start to break even. And not to mention, I think there is a lot of rationalization of our cost structure. Rents are being renegotiated. Perhaps we'll run some centers, we reduce staff, some of our marketing costs will go down, and so on. So yeah, hopefully half the people will come back right away, and other half will take their time. And once they're comfortable, what we're modeling is our net profitability should increase significantly over next 12-month period.
Yeah.
Because the crisis also affect the cost structure in a significant way. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the point that I was alluding to in the beginning as well, that because of the online model, the overheads will be significantly reduced, and perhaps that will boost profitability. But Ankit, let's understand the scenario planning that you're doing. The worst case, or at least the hope that Mukesh has, is that this crisis will last between 6 to 9 months. If that is the situation, then in terms of further cost rationalization, what more needs to be done?
So, Shireen, I think right in the middle of the lockdown, I think we've done one set of rationalization on the cost structure of offline businesses, which Mukesh spoke of, the rentals, the overheads, the marketing costs, all of them have actually been rationalized. And a lot of cost now is variable. So as and when demand starts coming, I'll talk about the EatFit business as an example. So as and when demand starts coming in, we will start incurring those costs. So EatFit as a business, before shutdown happened, we were anywhere about 50,000 orders a day. Right now, that number is between 10 to 15,000 orders, purely because there is less demand in the market. People are paranoid about ordering. Right? While EatFit has recovered well because its association with health and the safety overall.
Sure.
But we feel that there will be another 3 to 6 months before we'll start hitting 60-70% demand in the market. And all the costs which are associated with delivering these numbers are all variable, because as and when we'll have more orders, we'll have to get more delivery boys, more people in the kitchen, etc. So we've been able to variabilize a lot of our costs, and that's also been one decent outcome out of the last 3-4 months in terms of mechanization, automation. We've been able to do a lot of that. So I don't think we are staring at a situation where if demand does not come in, we continue to bleed. I think we've been smart about how we have variabilized and made some of these cost structures very smart.
Okay, so you believe that you will be able to manage with the current costs as well as what you've been able to do with the digital pivot. But Mukesh, let's understand how challenging it has been to get the back end in place. You haven't had much lead time to make this pivot. It's literally happened live on the fly. Take me through some of the challenges of being able to do that.
I think it's been combination of two things, Shireen. One is, our aspiration from day one was to bring a lot of technology into health space. So it so happened that we have been working on our digital platform for last 2 years. We had a lot of DIY content. We had the live class platform ready. And we are, even though we are in the fitness business, we have built very strong technology capability. So all that work was happening. It was kind of investment to future. Our long-term aspiration was always to become a digital company so we can service 100 million consumers throughout India and be a global health tech company eventually. So we were in some ways, ready. Obviously, we did not know, we didn't see the crisis coming, but because of some investment into future, direction, we were quite prepared. And the day pandemic hit, we knew we have possibly an opportunity at our hands. Some of the core pieces were already in place. But what transpired next was also equally inspiring. The entire company found this new vision of digital first. First few weeks of pandemic, most lot of our trainers doing recording at home. People just going to crazy lengths, working around the clock.
Yes.
That also helped make whole company come together and being really resourceful. And it was we were blown away with the dedication, commitment, passion that everybody associated with the organization brought to a table. And within few weeks we had the best digital fitness platform in the country. And last few months now things have calmed down a bit. We've been able to do that, but it's a little bit of building for future, combined with the immense dedication of the team.
Ankit, how many hours have you put in personally as you've made this digital pivot?
Yeah, I think the one thing which I hear from the team often is that, surprisingly enough, because of work from home, there are no boundaries. So most of the people end up working long hours and not necessarily working through the day, but there are no boundaries. So likewise for Mukesh and me, I think we both have been putting in the long hours, but I think that's the need of the hour right now.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're health company, Shireen, so don't compromise with our health. Sleep. I sleep 7-8 hours every day. Work out,
and you're working out. And you're working
exactly,
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not
That's one thing which is a large part of our team. Like, I think one common thing across all our team members is just the love for fitness and health. So that keeps the team sane, I would say.
Well, that's good to know, and that's good to hear as well. But Mukesh, I want to ask you this because both Ankit and you were speaking about the lack of boundaries, whether it's when you're working from home and there are no boundaries, or you talked about the lack of geographic boundaries which are helping you make this digital pivot and take your business to international markets like the US. But increasingly, we're starting to see that geographic boundaries and the color of money is starting to matter. As someone who's if I could call it that, a veteran of the Indian startup space, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I think we are in a digitally connected world. We increasingly live in a world. There's a lot of interdependencies across economies, across consumers, suppliers, etc. So as a vibrant, thriving ecosystem, good relationships basically with all the participants in the ecosystem, I think is important. There may be I think differences in the short term, but as a participant in the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem, I hope that we get past the short term escalations and get back to more normal resumption of business. There's a lot of interdependence at different levels.
Yeah.
Having said that, obviously country needs to do what it needs to do to defend its sovereignty and right, and to assert itself. It's a new India, is different. So all of that has its own place, and happy to see that the government being very, very assertive about that. But purely from business point of view, growth point of view, it's important at some point life to come back to normal in every sense of the word. I guess we have a lot of abnormality going around. Hopefully once this year the closes down, we start 2021 with a lot of normalcy in every sphere of life.
Yes, and yes, and you're right in pointing out about the interdependence that we do need to be mindful of, even as we look at the current escalation and what it means from a national and sovereignty perspective. But Mukesh, I want to veer back to the conversation that we're having currently in the context of the ban on TikTok and so on and so forth. And I don't want to go down the ban route, because whether it's justified or not is a matter of a different show, and I'm not going down that route at all. It's a decision that the Indian government has taken. My question to you is that over the last few days, virtually every couple of minutes, I'm getting an email saying that we are India's version of TikTok. Now, for someone who's lived through the kind of B2C frenzy that we saw in the e-commerce market when you set up Myntra, what would your advice be to those who are looking at capitalizing on this opportunity?
Yeah, first of all, I can tell you that CureFit, we are not thinking about building another TikTok. So with that being out of the way,
That's one less Indian version of TikTok.
yeah, we'll not put our head in the ring for that. I think that I'm sure a lot of worthy contenders. I think Shireen, and you know Mintra's story from the early days. I remember talking to, I think,
Yeah.
2008 or 9.
Yes.
So I think, as the B2C journey goes, it's a multi-year journey, sometimes 5 year or 10 years. So no matter what the situation is today, a player A is there or not there, anyone who is coming into it and thinking of building whatever next step for the country has to believe it's going to be in a 4 or 5 year journey. Landscape will change. There are many other global content, media, video player. That space is quite mature. There may be an opportunity, no doubt about it. But it's not like that someone will emerge as a TikTok of India next few weeks or few months. It just doesn't happen that way. You are right. We have seen a lot of B2C frenzy. Sometimes there could be some random catalyst for that. But it serves its purpose. It draws in a lot more new entrepreneurs, people, new ideas come to the fray, and some of them may end up working. Some people really find this is their passion; they actually want to
Yeah.
build this over the next 5 years. So that could be something positive that can come out of this.
Yes, absolutely. Ankit, in fact, I want to take your thoughts on that. Building a B2C brand that's viable and sustainable in the long term. What would your advice be to people who are looking at going down this road?
Yeah, I think these are some of the discussions with Mukesh and I've had for many, many years now. I think if you have to build a B2C brand, one, you have to know it's a multi-year journey. There are no short-term hacks, of course, there will be windows of opportunity where something is banned and you can quickly get to your first 100,000 customers or something like that. But the journey of building a brand is a multi-year journey. Sometimes it takes 5 years, sometimes 10 years. But if you just look at all the successful startups now, large companies like Flipkart, Myntra, Paytm, they've been around for over 10 years now. And now they are, sizable part of the market. They are 10, 20, 30% of the respective categories. So I think one advice which Mukesh and I always think about is the fact that if you embarking on a journey of building a brand or a business or a product, if you take a 10-year, everything becomes irrelevant in the short term.
Yes.
And there are no examples of companies which have been built in less than 10 years. So that's the only way of thinking about it.
Absolutely. Take a 10-year lens and think about it. The approach shouldn't be merely opportunistic. It needs to be much more than that. So revisit the drawing board if necessary. Let me end then by asking you, Mukesh, there is only so much that you can second guess at this point in time because you don't control many of the externalities that you're dealing with and that you're faced with. But in terms of cash, in terms of the runway, in terms of fundraising, what's the thinking at this point in time?
Yeah, I think it's as the saying goes, right? You have to live to fight another day. I think every company and startup needs to think from that lens. You can do your model planning and scenarios, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months. Whatever money you have, one has to make it last. Fortunately, we are very strong position. We actually managed to raise around just before the crisis begins, so that way we are in a very good situation. We are obviously being very mindful of managing our burn, etc. But yeah, my advice to anyone who is dealing situation and might have short cash reserves should look at their burn very seriously and try to really hunker down, focus on the core and go back to just thinking long term. We have seen so many good companies come out of every single crisis, whether India or outside. So in some ways, every that's an opportunity for every entrepreneur to think about how do I, take advantage of this crisis. In CureFit, we like this, saying never let a crisis go to waste.
Yes.
So, for us, we are thinking, what can we do with this crisis that we would not have done otherwise? And that's the same thing, every entrepreneur can ask this question, and I'm sure you will find answers you wouldn't have thought of in the situation. And also, you get license to make, bold decisions. In a crisis, no one stops you from making big sweeping changes, business model changes, purpose change, changing team, etc. So yeah, one needs to be mindful of all of that. But yeah, do make sure your cash can outlast whatever how long this crisis lasts.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, that is what will matter the most. But thanks very much, Mukesh and Ankit, for joining us here, taking us through your journey of making this digital pivot and also sharing with us very important lessons. They've been around, guys. They've been around for over a decade. They've seen this story play out. So pay heed to what they're saying on building a building a B2C brand is a multi-year journey, so think about it from a long-term perspective. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Young Turks. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.